Welcome to another episode of Resortera Way, reacting to yesterday's win for Mexico 2-0 over Honduras on November 21st, 2023. And yeah, I mean, it's a result that it was a tough one to get. They took it all the way to penalties, where el 3-1, 4-2. Um, very, very late night finish for us in the East Coast. I mean, it was
Hmm.
literally 12:30 and stuff, so it was pretty darn late. You really have to be devoted to this situation to stay up so late. Then again, I mean, it's a Thanksgiving week, holiday week, but good to see El Tri get the result. Good to see El Tri seal their place in next year's Copa America, where we already know that the final will be in Miami and the first game will be in Atlanta. Oscar, how you doing? How's everything?
And crazy last 24 hours, you can say the least. Especially, just kind of how, in a way, kind of like a 360 kind of vibe situation, right? Because of how it was in Honduras just Thursday. And then today, it's kind of like, it's not the opposite, it's obviously always criticism, but they made it through. Thinking, myself included, I didn't think we were going to get through, especially uh, the circumstance of last one, but we'll get into it as to why. I want to give an example later on.
Yeah, no. So today we're just gonna look over really what happened in yesterday's game, but also what's next. No, what's next for this team? Um, we're well aware that they have a friendly against Colombia in Los Angeles to close out the year in December. But of course, that team will only have Liga MX and MLS-based players. So Jimmy Lozano won't be able to really move around a lot of pieces. No, there's going to be a lot of experimenting in that game. It's all allowed in that game, in my opinion. But I think what I really want to look into is this lineup I have here, Oscar. It's basically the lineup with how the team ended the match. And in my opinion, it looked really well, no, on paper, no. I know it's missing Chavez, for example, is missing Chiquito, but just to get a starting point for a conversation, no. Edson was as a center back. Johan was here. Araujo was in for Jorge Sanchez. Gallardo, Orbelin was more in a deeper role. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Romo, Chino Huerta and Chucky were moving through the wings, so sometimes you would see Chucky here, Chino there. Quiñones had three great goal opportunities, I'd say, in this match, especially in the second half when he came in.
Mm-hmm.
Santi also had a good left-footed shot in height here in the area that was desviado by Honduras defender. But what are your thoughts about how the game ended, Oscar, and specifically looking at what the subs offered, no?
Yeah, I think they did a really good job in terms of, especially tactically, kind of continuing off and enhancing what the first starting 11 did. I mean, if you look at the stats, Naib, I think what was it, like 38 shots and 11 on target.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they
The
kind of continue.
expected goals was over five, no, which
Mhm.
is when you look at that number, it's as crazy as it gets.
You know what's funny on that? Just a fun little stat on that. The XG for Honduras was, I think, slightly less to what Mexico's was in Honduras. So it literally kind of a role reversal. And then our XG was actually higher than Honduras, but you have to take into account the extra half an hour we played. But I think what, especially Quinones, I really liked. You kind of saw what that in behind movement.
Yeah,
Obviously, he needs to finish those chances, but he was kind of doing what Chiquito was doing, right? He was finding himself into like great space, and I think that's what you needed. Obviously, you need to finish it at the end of the day, but tactically, you can see it can work.
it disrupted a little bit what was happening because Honduras was all back and you
Mm-hmm.
needed some spark on those one-on-ones, no? Because at the end of my favorite shot was that one, no? The one that he starts sort of like right here and then
Mm-hmm.
just takes on some defenders of Honduras and takes the shot around here.
Mm-hmm.
The ball just goes a little bit off right there. But
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of stuff that Quiñones can offer. But it also shows his cons, no? His ever since he's been a player in Liga MX, he has that sort of deficiency sometimes
Mm-hmm.
of not finishing, you know. And this is not an issue just on Quinones, but it's an issue on many of El Tri strikers, no? Um, I personally like what I saw from Santi in the minutes he had. The PK was really amazing. I think it looked like he could have missed it, but it was just impeccable right at the angle, top angle. In my opinion, when he took out Antuna, Jimmy Lozano, I think it was for Chucky, to be honest. I think it should have stayed. Antuna should have stayed in Chino. And I think El Tri easily wins in the second half with Chucky out of the picture. I mean,
Mm.
if you leave, because Antuna was the most insistent attacker in the first half. And I think if you would have added Antuna with Quiñones, Santi, and Chino Huerta, I don't think they go to extra time. I think El Tri really finishes it off in those last 45 minutes. What do you think about that?
That's an interesting take, yeah, because I mean, a lot of the commentary too was saying that Chucky should have come off instead of Antuna when
Yeah,
that
yeah.
substitution happened. But yeah, I think so. I think I agree with you for the most part. It's not like Chucky was horrible too. By the way, I don't think he was. He was dangerous. He was active.
Yeah, yeah, but it wasn't sort of like determinant, no. I
Yeah,
feel like he really missed the end product many times,
yeah,
whether
that's
it was
true.
the cross or the shot.
That's true.
Um, what you can take away from Chucky is the fact that he'll work his ass off. No, he'll
Yeah,
he'll he'll
exactly.
track
That's
back.
why I think that's my thing. Because there was that great tackle right for a counter that he took down the player. Basically, it was a clean ball, but I don't know how that was a foul. But like you said, he has that in him. He'll track back down. He'll do the dirty work too, despite being kind of like the main guy up front.
In the second half, and here on my thing, I left Ochoa, and it's actually Malagon. Now that I look at it. It's because Ochoa's there forever, bro. It's like
Yeah.
it's gonna be 2030, and Ochoa will be there. So Malagon, the save that he had on Lozano's header.
Mm.
I mean, that was an impeccable save. He also made a great saves in the PKs, but you know that play that Honduras had, and Honduras had several plays to score a goal, and
Mhm.
that would have changed the whole outlook of things.
Mhm.
But what are your thoughts in the defending in that play? Because there was a lot of criticism on Johan and
Mhm.
how easily he was sort of pushed
Mhm.
by Lozano throughout the series.
Mhm.
I mean, you're
No,
not a fan of Johan,
I
that's
mean,
another thing.
yeah, it's not that I'm not a fan of him. He's obviously a good player, but I think we just have to see the reality as well. Now he's playing for a relegation team. He's playing for basically a Serie B team. I think that's fair to say. It's not saying that's not a horrible thing. How many people in the world could wish they can say they're professional playing second division in Italy? But you saw this against in the first leg as well. I think the second goal was also his fault too, just as much as Edson, just kind of being pushed off too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think defensively, you were always going to see that, especially the way Honduras was getting set up. Because if I'm not mistaken, that came off that wasn't a counter, but the one before that where they should have scored on that counter. You know what I'm talking about? The one where like
Yeah, the one that he just misses it. He just
they just missed it, and the Honduran player thankfully missed it too. And like you said, they make that it's a completely different ball game. But you were always going to see that. We were always gonna, no matter how good you are, every team in the world is going to get caught on a counter. Even if you're Virgil van Dijk or Kanate, whoever, it doesn't matter. So I think we were going to see that, and I think Jimmy also mentioned that we were going to see that too. But I definitely saw the defense, like especially the 1v1, very shaky. I thought Jorge Sanchez was also very poor in my opinion as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it just goes to show that the situation with Jimmy Lozano is not a complete picture yet. I think that what happened in the Gold Cup could be analyzed as an outlier, considering the scenario where El Tri was placed. No, in the end of the day, I think the most competitive match in that tournament was against Panama in the final. But everything was in favor for El Tri. They were the home team in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles. So it wasn't really a big challenge for El Tri to win that Gold Cup, especially considering that the U.S. and Canada didn't take their best teams. And if you look at it now, well, Canada's not even in the Nations League semis in the Final Four. And it's a mess in Canada. It was like a um, one hit wonder thing for Canada the last World Cup qualifier, because it's looking that it's going way down the drain in the last month or so. But with Mexico, I think looking at it right now, um, what is the main issue you think, Oscar, with Jimmy Lozano's side? What is something that it really is still not clicking at its total?
Hmm. I think I think this is an obvious one to an extent because I mean, despite being really negative of the Johan and Montes partnership these last two legs, this is gonna help them because, like I said, they played it in Honduras in a hostile environment where they're not comfortable compared to when they're in the States. And for second, they're playing regularly together in the national team. So I think long term, it's gonna be a benefit. Despite me not rating Johan, but that's another case. At the end of the day, if that's going to be the thing, I'm going to support it, and hopefully it goes well for them. But I think this is going to be the obvious one. But we have to figure out a way. How can we really feed the forward players and really just get the forwards to score goals, right? Because this is going back to the Tata era, and even though despite Nayib, I think we obviously created a bunch of chances yesterday. Even when Santi came on, Henry, Quinones, how many actual chances were created for the forwards to actually get a chance on goal? Versus, like you said, you mentioned the Quinones play where he had the 1v1 there that he should have finished. That
Yeah.
came out of nowhere. Really, he kind of took on a player. He got a rebote off too, and he kind of created it. Versus the wingers, the center backs, the center mids creating through balls, getting crosses into the forwards. I think that's gonna still be the main issue because even though Santi and the forwards did look decent, I still think we don't create chances for them still.
Yeah, I mean, there's this note from Cesar Hernandez's article on ESPN where he says in 400 plus minutes of play since October, Mexico's three forwards, Raul Jimenez, Henry Martin, and Santi, have all combined for a total of just one single shot on target in 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Looking ahead to the Copa America, it's unlikely that Lozano can afford this type of inefficiency or tally of 38 shots in a single game to find success. Um, that is a symptom, a bad symptom to what you're just saying. I mean, it's not like these guys don't want to take shots. It's just that the
Mm-hmm.
ball's not coming to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if we look at past Mexico teams, especially if we look, for example, at the Osorio era, right quick. I mean, they had Vela, they had Tecatito, players that were able to cater for Chicharito or for Oribe Peralta or for Raul Jimenez, no? Um, right now, in my opinion, when I look at what's available, the players, quote unquote, I mean, that's another thing. When you have two wingers, I mean, and Martino did that a lot in the World Cup, no? You have Vega and Chucky and the striker, Henry Martin, no? But Vega is not a generator, no te genera juego. He's not a 10. He's a
Mm-hmm.
finisher, as
Mm-hmm.
is Martin. And to a certain extent, Chucky the same way. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said in the last show, he's a finisher. You got to look for the open space to shoot him wide open and see if he can make a goal. These are not generators, these wingers. You
Mm-hmm.
need you need some sort of mixture there that will generate, because even when Lozano says that's why I put Orbelin Pineda as a starter and he was a starter in Tegucigalpa, but Orbelin doesn't give you that. Orbelin is sort of like that head on, or like you said, box to box midfielder that likes to cover a lot of ground and likes to arrive as a surprise into the area himself. It's just direct play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you need with this team, or what El Tri needs right now, is someone that can calm the game and really find ways to feed the striker. In this case, it can be Santi, it can be Henry, it can be Raul, it can be Quinones. I mean, and I think that's where El Tri is really lacking, no? And
Mm-hmm.
even if there's a bunch of options, because it's true, there's a lot of attacking options, and you can make the argument that there's more options on the offense than in the defense, and the defense were a little bit dry. I think the issue with El Tri also, it's a very, very imbalanced issue, or I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what it is. when you look at it, well, maybe the center back pairing is not so strong, but and then when you look at the attack, is well, we need players to really give the ball and give plays or to that allow for Santi, Raúl, and Henry and Quiñones to increase the amount of shots they take per game.
No, I think you said it right there's an imbalance right now, and I think you mentioned it. You mentioned this on the Twitter page, saying that Jimmy is very much still learning on the job, right? So even
Yeah,
though he has those core players that he got from the Olympics, the reality is not all of them are going to translate into the senior national team or even have a good career. I mean, we can even go back to the gold medal squad. How many of them really went into the senior national team, right? But that's another discussion.
yeah,
But I think you're right in terms of, but rather than feeding the forwards, yes, I agree that should be the priority. But I'll even go a step further. If we can substitute our current wingers right now, even if that means sacrificing a Chucky, if Tecatito comes back, sacrificing him, and having Antuna and Alvarado in there, who are not the players that are going to cut in and try to take a shot, but more than likely, hopefully, do crosses. Again, Antuna's not the best crosser either, but we saw in the first half how many chances, and this is where I've mentioned that he thrives, where we can play balls where his only option is to either cross it or try to finish it. Don't let him
yeah.
think too much. And I think we saw a lot of that yesterday. And that's why I think he looked very effective. Same thing with Chino. I think he could work, but I think just to have a left-footed player, is he left-footed too, Chino?
Well, he le pegó al penal con la derecha, ¿no? O sea, he's
Oh,
not
okay.
left-footed. I think he's more right-footed.
Okay, then, but okay, they go back to my point then with putting Alvarado then as a starter maybe to, or even Cordova maybe if he can serve because he's not really
Yeah, I
he's not gonna
think
be selfish. He's gonna cross it in. I think that's what
that's
we
a
need.
big question mark right now for the Lozano era. What will Cordova offer you if he does potentially find a way to win a starting role? Because he didn't get a single minute right now in this series, which means that Lozano sees other players above him, um, and I think that's a big question mark heading into next year.
Mm.
What will Cordova do? Will he be able to break into the starting 11 of the national team, or if he will just be a what if, no? Like he's constantly getting injured, he's inconsistent with his performances at the club level. So we don't know. That could potentially change in the next 6 months. But knowing what we've seen in the past history, there's nothing that suggests that magically he's going to become the solution, no, for the problem that El Tri faces. I think when you look at the 120 minutes of this match, or 140, however it was, you think about that first play in the first minute, literally. Antuna
Mm-hmm.
crosses in, Chiquito heads the ball. But what if it had been, Raúl Jiménez heading that, or what if it had been Santi heading that, or
Mm-hmm.
Quiñones, you know? So it does invite to that idea of the 4-4-2 with two strikers and see what happens, no? Because in that play, yeah, Chiquito, as he proved against Germany, he can score headers. But it would have been nice to have a striker receiving that ball in that moment and see, I'm not gonna say that he would have made it because as we saw, Quiñones had also a header in the second half and he threw it right at the goalkeeper without a marking around him. But it invites to think about that possibility, no? And not to take away from Chiquito as well. I mean, I think Chiquito is another one of those players that at least that when he's on the field, he's going to give his all, which is,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately the least that you ask from a player. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what goes there. Oscar, are there any other things that stood out, or from your end that you want to put on the floor?
Nothing that the media coverage hasn't said already. Tactically, I still want to look into it a little bit more, but something that stood out to me. I don't know if you know. Did you notice Gallardo kind of tucking in like as an inverted fullback, or is it just me?
Inverted center back, you mean?
Gallardo tucking in like as an inverted like midfielder in a sense, but maybe it could have been like a center back as well. At some point, there's some more central at the field at times, center mid of the field.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you
I
notice
mean,
that?
I noticed it a little bit, but I think it was because of desperation. No, Montes was also basically another striker at one point. No,
Yeah.
um, but Gallardo is an interesting case, no, because Gallardo has been present in this since 2017. I mean, it's almost 6 years already that he's been sort of he's always starting. Like no matter if the coach is Martino, Osorio, Tuca, whatever.
He's
He's
only left-footed left back in Mexico playing.
But
If
what does
not,
that say about Mexican football? You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
they've been trying to add like, I remember at one point they were thinking about Reyes from Atlas, que otros también,
Arteaga, right? But he's kind of
Campos
been
from
writing out.
Santos. Arteaga is definitely deleted at this point because Martino didn't consider him now. The only way Gallardo's out of the picture is if he gets injured. That's what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot has been said about Ochoa, but why nobody talks about Gallardo? And I think Gallardo is that sort of player that silently does his job, when required, but he never goes over the expectation. No, it's sort of like that
just a
student
few
that,
times. I think that's the issue with him. When
yeah,
we have seen him excel both defensively and offensively, it's like, why can't you do this on a more
always,
regular basis? Yeah, I mean, and I think
especially
that's for
with,
a lot of players too.
yeah, yeah, and it's for a lot of players, but for this in particular, for Gallardo in particular, I think when you look at the lineup that we have right now on the board, I got Córdoba, Santi, Quiñones, Antuna, Gallardo, Chávez, Edson, Johan, Montes, Araujo, Malagón. Edson and Gallardo Gallardo has more games than Edson in the national team.
Wow.
He's
Yeah, that's true.
without a doubt, the leader. No, I mean, or one of the so-called experienced players. No, because when Ochoa goes out to the media after the loss against Tegucigalpa, he says, "Well, our players don't have that much experience playing in Central America, and that's why they whooped us the way they did." It's a very, very what is that? It's an excuse. It's an out of date excuse for me. No, there are players with experience. No, and I think Gallardo, in my opinion, needs to do more than what he does. No, I understand if Araujo still struggles because he's barely entering into the picture. I understand, well, not so much with Jorge Sanchez because Jorge Sanchez was involved in the last proceso, but Gallardo needs to do more than he does. It's sort of like he does the minimal effort every time. Like, okay, just defend, win some headers. You got to do the extra, no? And I feel no one really puts that pressure on him or tells him straight up, hey, dude, you've been here since 2017. Do something, you know? And Chucky, also in that category alongside with Gallardo. These are players with a lot of games already under their belts, and we
Yeah.
expect more from them. And I think they should be, very, very. If they fail to do things that their level sort of should allow them to do, that they're not doing so well for the national team.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the issue too. Like you said, first of all, with the Chucky one, I really do think there is some type of like he has credit in the bank because of that goal in Germany, to be honest, and the fans just love him too. So
Yeah,
I think that does impact the coach and why and obviously I think just the quality too. I think Jimmy sees in him, but the Gallardo one is unique because, like I said, I do think it seems like he's the only left back in the entire world that's Mexican, right? So by default he's going to be called up, and by default he's going to play. So it's one of those things where he does need to um,
have some
grasp
sort of
the other two.
consistency. Yeah.
Consistency, be able to get the consistency because of the amount of playing time he gets, but also just um, just like mainly that just get in the consistency and now be comfortable too with, like you said, he has the experience now. I mean, he's played 4 important World Cup games very young at the 2018 World Cup and then this 2022. So he's experienced. So yeah, we definitely got to expect a little bit more.
Yeah, look, based on how the team is playing right now, and then based on what we've seen in the last, months since Lozano was officially named the manager for El Tri. I don't see this team making it out of the group stage in the Copa America.
Well,
I mean, I just don't see it happening in that way.
depends
There
on the
needs
group, I think.
depends on the group, but it also because like, I think about the group that they had in the Centenario: Jamaica, Venezuela, and I forget the first one right now.
Uruguay?
Uruguay, yeah, they don't make it out of a group like that based on how they're playing right now. Because the what the team is really lacking is really an imbalanced team, a very very imbalanced team. Sometimes they seem to have a good streak, other times they just look pathetic like they did on Friday in Tegucigalpa. So if they're not able to find some sort of resemblance or balance from now to the Copa America, they're not making it out of the group stage. I mean, I don't think
Mm,
with the talent available now and with the talent
mm.
available, perhaps out of the blue, and when I mean out of the blue, is telling you, well, maybe Victor Guzman and Ramon Juarez become really good center backs that Jimmy can't say no to that, or Marcelo Flores starts next year with 5 goals, 5 assists, or some sort of thing. It's out of the blue that no one is expecting that at the moment.
You're just saying
So
more than anything. You're going off what you've seen since Jimmy has been in charge.
yeah,
More
yeah.
than anything.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I think that the Honduras defeat really put a sour taste in our mouths because like take away the loss against Qatar, right, in the Gold Cup. That has only been the really one where like wow what are we doing here?
Yeah, and even if you look, for example, at the game against Uzbekistan,
That's
which
true.
which had some accidents, Ochoa messed up, but those I think even against Australia, no, they came back. No, it wasn't like they started well.
Yeah,
They
see,
came
yeah,
back.
that's my point there because, like you said, I mean, it's obviously a shaky imbalance, but they're also, like you said, they're coming back. Like even yesterday, like I was the one who said they're not gonna even make it come back, and look at them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And props to them. Props to them. Pero fíjate, también, for example, the Germany, you have a 2-1 lead against Germany, and you're not able to protect that lead. That's a bad symptom as well in the friendly because you had
That's
everything
yeah,
in
that's still
favor.
there.
You had everything in favor to win that game, but you can't protect it. I mean, literally, Germany scored within 10 minutes of Chiquito's goal. So
Yeah,
those are little things that you gotta keep in mind, and we'll see. No, but not taking away anything. I mean, I think it's good for Mexico to be actually in the Copa America or not to play in the repechaje. Because the repechaje it's a coin flip. It could have been a coin flip. And a lot of things can happen. So right now they secure a spot in the Nations League Final Four, which will be played in Dallas in March. They play against Panama, which, in my opinion, Panama was one of the best looks these last days in the CONCACAF region. Just so solid overall. So it's Panama, Mexico, Jamaica, the U.S., and then we'll see from there. There could be a Nations League final between Mexico and the U.S. Maybe, maybe. Porque Panama didn't make it look easy in Los
yeah.
Angeles this year. So closing thoughts, Oscar?
I'll do it with a question, Naib. Just a yes or no question.
Okay.
Based on what you've seen, right, with kind of the just Jimmy's Mexico national team, and I guess the national team over the years. If you're Jimmy, do you adjust to the players that you have, or do you continue to try to implement your style? I say this because one of the things that came up to me recently was that Ten Hag interview where you mentioned that Manchester United, obviously club and country is different, but I think this
Yeah.
can be applied even more at the national team level. You don't have the play. He didn't have the players he had at Ajax, so Ajax. So at Man United, he has to play a completely different way. The same thing with this national team right now. The players he had at the Olympics, they're different to what he's going to have available at the senior national team. Whether it's better or worse, it's going to be different regardless. Are you going to adjust to a formation or a system that suits the overall team, or do you try to still implement your style of play with the players you want to, and which way will be more successful?
Ooh, I think you adapt to what you have available. No, and I
I
mean
agree.
in a sense of like it's not. This is the thing with the conundrum with Mexican football, or the conundrum many times is you have to win the next game. You have to really, and that idea in the brain is like, because you have to win the next game, you can't put
You can experiment.
Malagon. Hey, you can't put
Yeah.
Malagon on goal. Now, fortunately, Malagon did well yesterday, and all of a sudden the script is sort of like, oh, we actually do have a semi good goalkeeper in case Ochoa's not available, But those are things that I don't know. It's very, very difficult. I mean, you see, for example, the case of Spain right now with the injury of Gavi. No,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are saying, why did Gavi play? Why is he playing that game? When there's other important games ahead. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the competitive level as well. It's like, I want to play those games. I want to be present with my national team. There's a very, very big difference between playing for a club and a national team. I mean, we've been seeing
England,
it.
England is the same thing. That you see all the A squad playing against Malta or one of the Gibraltar or something like that. It happens everywhere too because they know
Yeah,
the job is on the lines at the end
the
of the
job
day.
is on the line, and also look, it is como a wake up call to also for Mexico in all of its faces, media, fans, players. You got to respect the opponent. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
I agree.
today France the tied 2-2 against Greece. I mean, come on. I mean, when was the last time Greece was in the World Cup? I think 2000. I don't know if they were in the World Cup. They haven't been in the World
2006
Cup.
maybe was the
2000,
last one. Maybe.
maybe 2006, 2010, 2004. No sé, pero it's 2-2,
Mm-hmm.
It's 2-2 there. The result, that's what it says, no? So it's like, you really have to respect the opponent. I think Honduras did an excellent job that first game. The second, if they score one of those goals,
Different
they have
story.
different
It's a
story.
different
And we've
story.
been talking about elimination right now. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's what football is, no? So uh, I think that Jimmy needs to adapt to what he has, but with this, but have the guts to remove players that are not efficiently giving you results on the field after multiple opportunities. Because Chucky it's not like he's playing for the first time. It's been a lot of times and nothing happens. I mean, the only best part of the game of Chucky's game is when everyone's chanting El Chucky los, because nothing happens on the field when he's playing.
That's
He's not
harsh.
scoring. That's the only best part of his game during the Mexico games, is when the fans are chanting that El Chucky Lozano. And I think you have to note that. I love Chucky and everything, but he's not been playing good, and he's been maintaining himself as a starter. I think Jimmy has to be very. Does he have the guts to do that? To say, you know what? Let me put Antuna and Alvarado and see what happens. And then if Chucky gets mad because he's not starting, well, he has to prove that he deserves a starting role. And I think that's something that El Tri is not really showing or having.
There you go, Naib. I think you summed it up perfectly there. I agree. I think you have to adjust to what you have because if you try to force out, I mean, and I think it's beautiful too. I think Osorio did this too. Sometimes you believe in more of the player than what they actually are, and I think you need that as a coach on a human level. But también at some point you got to be like, all right, I just got to do what's best for the team collectively, even if it means starting a guy that was starting all this time and he has to come off. He has to be benched.
Yeah, and look, and that's the thing. I mean, there's gonna be losses. No, that's part of
Exactly.
that's part of a process. I think that's another thing. It's like there's not a process where you don't lose. And this one is even better for Mexico. Well, it should have been better. I don't. You're not in the qualifiers. You know what I mean? It's like you got a direct ticket to 2026, and you're planning and you're playing with an idea that you have to win every game, that you have to make sure that it's okay to lose, and it's okay to lose as bad as you did in Tegucigalpa, because that's where you learn. That's
It's
where,
a benefit, yeah. Like
yeah,
back
yeah.
then.
O sea,
Hmm.
te maduran más rápido. You understand. You're like, damn, we messed up on this play. We can do better. We can do this next time. And it's not like, but I think in Mexico people don't understand that, and they never get it. Nunca lo han entendido, I guess. So, because I guess it's the short term Liga Mexis, and it's like, damn, you don't win 5 games in a row, or you lose 5 games in a row, it's over. You're out.
Yeah.
No, viene otro técnico. I mean, even when you like want to look at an example, look at your team, Cruz Azul, no? They've had Tuca
No, you have to
Ferretti.
go there. Yeah.
You have Tuca there, who's like been the coach that has always been, but no hubo paciencia, so next one. Y luego otro técnico, y luego otro director deportivo. So with that, in that vicious circle is the national team as well. No? And I think that's when things don't really, ¿qué te vas a esperar, no?
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think in that aspect. Obviously, I feel like because we're in it and we kind of see it growing up. I think it's also worldwide too. I think at the club level, national team level too, all over the place. But
Yeah, yeah.
because we're in it, I think it's sports in general, Naib, too, right? Because like people forget that at the end of each season, whatever sport it is, there's only one winner, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, too, so every team that loses is a
No, no,
fracaso.
and
Like,
it's a good point. It's you go to that quote that Gianni Santetokounmpo said,
mm-hmm,
after the defeat. It's like, after every year you want to win, but sometimes it is part of the process, no? There's moments that are low, high, when and that's natural, no? Um, people say, like, for example, Morocco, no? They fired the coach 6 months before the World Cup, and then they're in the semis. But you also
exactly.
have to look at the quality of the players. No, where are they playing? Where were they raised in the youth academies? They weren't raised in youth academy from Zapopan, third division. These players were freaking raised in Real Madrid and
In
in
Spain
in the
clubs.
Netherlands.
Yeah.
You know, that also comes into the la cruda realidad, no? And I think you
Yeah.
have to say it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
I think you
No,
said that too. Yeah.
es lo que hay. So, look, this is we're not. It's tough with Mexican football because you always go through.
You open a different wormhole. It's just
Exactly, always. Y luego pues dirán, no, pues bien pesimistas y la madre. Pero es que también we got to talk about the reality. What's the reality? We can't be selling este fake stuff or sueños guajiros. We all have sueños guajiros. It's just that what we see on the field and what we see consistently is just nothing that really allows you to think that this is going in a great direction. It's not going in the right direction, unfortunately. Va pasito ahí más o menos, pero
I was
not
gonna
too.
say, I don't think we're going in the wrong direction either. We're just, it's a little iffy right now. Still, we'll find out soon enough.
We'll
But
find out. We'll find out in the Copa America next year and in the next month. So thank you, Oscar, for the time. Thanks for the people that have been watching these episodes, and also for following our Twitter account, Resortera Wave, and our TikTok account, and also Resortera Wave. So find us there, and then we'll be continuing the conversation. Thank you, Oscar, and have a nice Thanksgiving. Ciao, ciao.
see you guys.